mainly my mother, but I'm going to take the credit for it. So we were tracing our family tree back through history as far as we could. So we started with my father's side of the family, and that turned out to be quite easy actually. Turns out my father is from a long line of people from the Gordon clan. So my father's side is all Gordon clan. And we traced that back all the way to about the Wars of Independence. It's the 1200s. So many, many centuries of my family history. Quite easy to trace. Until we decided to trace my mother's side of the family. That proved to be much more difficult. Of course, when women get married, they change their name and it can be quite difficult to trace. So it was taking much longer, and wasn't long into it. We'd only got back to around the 1940s sort of era. And we're tracing a line of my family called the Mustards. Their surname was Mustard. And we're doing this thing where every time I confirmed that someone was indeed part of the family tree, we would do our best to find their grave and put flowers on it. I know that seems strange, but that's what we're doing. And there was one man in particular that was proving difficult to find. His name was John Alexander Mustard, and he died in 1946. So it took a while, but eventually we confirmed that yes, definitely part of the family. So it was time to go and try and find his grave. Now, John Alexander Mustard lived in a town called Tarland. And Tarland is way in the north of Scotland, quite close to Inverness actually, not too far from that area. So one day that I was off work, and my mother was off work, we drove up to Tarland and we went to the local graveyard. There is only one graveyard in Tarland, so it wasn't hard to find. And, well, I went into the graveyard and started looking for a gravestone with John Alexander Mustard written on it. Now, admittedly, I was not taking my time. It was a horrible day. Very, very cold, very windy, quite dark, foggy, horrible sort of day. So I was in a hurry, admittedly, but I couldn't find John Alexander Mustard's grave. I tried twice, but I couldn't find it. So eventually, well, I had to call it a day and give up. So I get back into my car, but just before I leave, there's another car that comes into the car park. Very old sort of sports car, you know, the type of car with the big round headlamps, the big sort of radiator grille, open top sports car. And this man gets out and he's wearing a tweed kilt, which I always remember because it was very strange. Not many people wear tweed kilts nowadays. And he gets out this car and he starts to clean up some of the graveyard. You know, he's picking up the trash and just generally cleaning up the area. So I assume he must be the caretaker or the janitor or whatever you would call him. So it's worth asking him if he knows where this grave is. So I go over to him and I say, "Excuse me, don't suppose you know where the grave of John Alexander Mustard would be?" And he stood bolt upright, he looked right into my eyes and he said, "My name is John Mustard. You must be looking for my father." You know, he had the same name as his father. And as you can imagine, I am completely blown away by this. I couldn't believe that I'd happened to meet the son of the man I'm looking for. I mean, it's millions to one the chances of it happening. But anyway, I say, "Well, yes, I must be looking for your father. Am I in the right place?" And he said, "Oh yes, you're in the right place. I'll take you to his grave." So he takes us over to the very corner of this little graveyard, and right enough, there is a little gravestone there, and it says John Alexander Mustard. and the dates match up perfectly with all my research, so I'm happy that that's definitely the person I'm looking for. Put the flowers on his grave, and then I got chatting to John Mustard, who I just met, and I just couldn't believe. I mean, what are the odds of meeting him? Unbelievable. But anyway, we spoke briefly about the family, and he said, look, if you ever have any more trouble finding anyone, give me a call. And he gives me a piece of paper with a phone number written on it. So I shake his hand, and I come home, forget all about it. Until a few weeks later, I went to see my mother. She was sitting in the house, just staring off into space, not really doing anything. And I said, well, Mum, what's wrong? And she said, well, John Alexander Mustard never got married and never had any children. And of course, me, with my sense of humour, I laughed. I said, well, don't be stupid, we met his son. Of course he had children, he must have. We met his son. What other proof do you want? And she said, yeah, okay, fair enough. But there is no record of him having a son. This John Mustard doesn't exist on any birth certificate we could find, none of the censuses or anything like that. So we spoke about it for a while, and eventually I remembered that I had his phone number. So I said, well, let's phone him and ask him why he doesn't exist. Admittedly, that's a strange phone call, but it would give us the answer that we need. So I look out the bit of paper and I dial it into my phone. The number was not recognised. It was not a real phone number. And even to this day, I've never found any evidence to support John Alexander Mustard having any family. And if he didn't have any family, who was it that I spoke to in the graveyard that day? So I don't know if it was a ghost. But it's strange. And I don't have any answers. I've never found out anything else after that. Maybe it was someone having a joke, but I doubt it. No, the very brief discussion we did have about the family, he was clearly very knowledgeable. He knew what he was talking about, he knew all the names I was mentioning. But he doesn't exist. So I don't know. It might be a ghost story, I don't know.
Hands up if you think it was a ghost story.
It's a ghost story if you believe it is. Well, there's the River Tay below us, Scotland's longest river. Pardon?
Majority said it's a ghost story.
Okay, it is a ghost story, there we are. I shook hands with a ghost. But if he was a ghost, it means he was driving a ghost car. And I didn't know those existed.
Gotta get around somehow.
In fact, those of you that watch Outlander, you know Frank's car? In the first couple of episodes? It was exactly like that. It looked just like that, actually. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have any more answers. I don't have a clue.